Welcome to Bunch Formation. My name is Chris Vannini, and I need a haircut. It's been a bit, but we got Big 12 Media Days next week. I've been trying to hold off until then. It's not looking great right now. David, I know this is a problem you have to handle quite a bit.
Yeah, I got a haircut about 20 minutes ago in the shower. So, these are the benefits of coming to terms with a receding hairline and just coming home early and just recognizing, hey, this is our lot in life. But the good news is, I've told you this, I don't age because if I grow my hair out, there's like a little bit of gray. But if you avoid the gray completely, then I'm going to look the same, ideally, at like 28 and 48. I'm on the Sam Jackson plan. That's what I'm hoping for. So we'll see. He's like 96, by the way.
I don't think that's right. Is it a problem at all in the summer when it gets hot?
Sometimes it didn't used to be, in part because I played a lot of golf when I was younger, and in part because I'm blessed in the melanin totals of my skin. But now, as I've gotten older, the top of the head, if I'm going to be outside for long periods, I do need to do a little sunscreen because I've just avoided it in the past, and then it's like painful, and it's like dead skin situation. It's not good, and I do some stuff on camera. I got to be careful. So now, if I'm going to be outside, the only thing I really have to do with the sunscreen is like top of head. So I'm okay generally.
Speaking of hanging out in the sun outside, you had a thing going on this weekend involving a children's YouTube star that you kind of wanted to get off your chest here.
Okay, listen, we got an issue. Chris, are you familiar with Blippi?
I know of Blippi. I don't have any kids, but I know through you and our other friends who have kids generally who he is.
He's whatever. In the most, there's a lot of children's programming that's annoying and or introduces bad ideas to your kids. Blippi, mostly fine, whatever. So the minor league baseball team in Knoxville had like a meet and greet with Blippi. I understand it's not going to be the actual Blippi on the YouTube/Netflix thing that he has. There's like two different Blippis. There's two different Mikas, which is obviously his best friend, Chris. I'm sure you know that.
Obviously.
Anyway, so I'm prepared that like when we go to this meet and greet, like I am going to recognize that this is a sub Blippi, surrogate, if you will. My daughter will be none the wiser. She's only 3, but she loves Blippi. She was very excited. She was talking about this. I told her about it on Friday. She was talking about it nonstop for like 2 days, asking when we were going to go. Me explaining the timeline was not sinking in. Anyway, so we go, and listen, it's a 2 p.m. game. It's very hot. There's a lot of families. There's a ton of kids at this baseball game because they obviously want to meet Blippi also. Come in the stadium, it's sort of unclear where the Blippi meet and greet is, but then they kind of announced it on the screen, so we go over there. The line is very long. Then, we were kind of waiting there for like 20 minutes, and then they tell us, hey, Blippi's going to take a break here in like 10 minutes, and we're nowhere close to the front of the line. So I'm like, that's okay. We'll go kind of play on the playground, watch some of the baseball, and kind of make the best of it. So, okay, we'll come back when Blippi's closer. So we come back, get back in the line. It's just as long, if not longer. My daughter's 3. It's very hot. She already does not do great in lines. She's getting better at it. She doesn't really understand. And also she can see Blippi. So she's fighting the instinct constantly to just run over there. We're in line. So anyway, long story short, it comes to see that, or I come to learn that Blippi is doing 30 minutes of meet and greet and then going inside for a full 30 minutes while they're not shutting down this line. There's still people in this line. So we wait. I know that we're just gonna have to eat this because I can't take her to this and not have her actually do the full meet and greet with Blippi. Like seeing him was not enough. She kept waving and yelling, "Hi Blippi," but he was ignoring her, which might sound rough, but he's trying to focus his attention on the kids that he's actually meeting. Anyway, so we're like 8 people from the line when 3:30 hits, and Blippi goes back for his second 30-minute break. This man was booed all the way going back inside. People were like, "Boo, Blippi! Boo, Blippi!" And I did not boo them, but I sanctioned the booing. Am I crazy, Chris? Is for an adult man coming for a meet and greet, and he's getting paid some fraction of, I'm sure, what is going on to Blippi Core, the larger Blippi mothership. Even in 90-degree heat, with a tent, I should mind you.
That's what I was going to ask.
30 minutes on and 30 minutes off is crazy. I did a straw poll of some of the other parents in line, and generally we settled on like 50-10 would be reasonable, and like 45-15 would be acceptable. 30-30 is nuts.
Yeah, that you can't. Maybe like 30-5, 30-5, or 30-10, 30-10, 30-30.
They don't shut down this line.
What are you even doing for a 30-minute break?
I don't know. Just go cool off for 10 minutes. There's like adults with tiny children standing out in the heat. Like after he leaves, people generally would sit down, but like the pavement's kind of hot. It was a little shaded by the time we got there, but still asking my 3-year-old to just sit calmly for 30 minutes, it was an Olympic sport. Listen,
but
Blippi,
you got there.
Get it together. We got the meet and greet.
Okay, good.
She had a great time. She would not stop talking about it the rest of the day.
That's very cute.
She's been talking about it this morning. She was like, Blippi, like we went and swam at some family house after that, and she was kind of telling everybody, I got to meet Blippi. It was Blippi. I said hi to Blippi. It was definitely worth it, but goodness gracious, Blippi, get it together. We can't be doing this 30-on, 30-off stuff. This is like, again, I did not boo Blippi, but if the ones who did, I was with you in spirit.
Yeah, like booing college football players, it used to be kind of should you do it or not? You know, they're not getting paid. Now they are, but Blippi presumably is getting paid for this. 30-on, 30-off is tough.
Well, so that, yeah, and that, but even still, you know, even though we're dealing with a surrogate Blippi that I've never seen before, there's like 2 main ones and maybe a third that I've seen like frequently in the videos. So I barely survived yesterday. It was unbelievably hot. We couldn't spend that much time in our seats. It was like 90 degrees.
But that's why you're a great father, because you did that and your daughter had a heck of a time. So good for you.
He loved it. It was worth it. It was terrible, but it was worth it. It reminded me a little bit of the time that my dad and I sat on the 18th green in Tulsa, Oklahoma in August in the PGA Championship in like 2008. That was like almost as hot as I've been where there's just no relief. That was also worth it to watch Tiger win a major. But Blippi, get it together. Please.
Get it together, Blippi.
Please.
All right. That was a long open, but Dave wanted to get something off his chest.
It's June and I'm angry, Chris. How many things in college sport make you angry in June?
It's June. We have parents who listen to the show. I'm sure they can relate. Ultimately, be a good parent. It pays off your kids.
And also get it together,
I can't speak to them. And get it together.
30 on and 30 off is outrageous.
We've got a big show for you, those of you who are still listening. Thank you. The Pac-12 has added Texas State. BYU may be losing its quarterback under some weird situation. And the college basketball video game is coming back.
One of the college basketball video games, Chris.
One of. Also, Oregon running backs coach Rashad Samples will join us. He is a rising star assistant coach. He's going to talk about how good the Ducks might be this year. Some of the players like Dante Moore, Mekhi Hughes, the running back, how good they're going to be this year, as well as his own rise through the coaching profession after concussions ended his playing career. He's only 30 years old, but he's one of the best. He's one of the best recruiters in the country as well. Loaded running back room this year. You will want to stick around for that. We will have everything in the show notes, the timestamp if you want to jump ahead to that or to anything else. Please send any feedback to bunchformationpod@gmail.com. We are Bunch Formation on everything social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, especially, where you can see our lovely faces, where we continue to grow on there. Please give us a like on the video or a 5-star review on your podcast. We read every 5-star review on this show, but we have none this time around. So
let's correct that.
You got some room, people. If you haven't given us a 5-star review yet, there's some open space for that. So with that long opening, it's time for us to talk about the news briefly. It's time to get into the media scrum.
That's why I don't read the newspaper, because it's garbage.
First off, the Pac-12 is officially back. Texas State has now officially joined the conference in all sports, including football. The Pac-12 needed one more school to get to 8 members for 2026. That is now done. That is a conference that's made up of what? Oregon State, Washington State, Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, San Diego State, Utah State, Texas State, and Gonzaga, not football.
That was good, Chris. That was impressive, I have to say.
They're all state except for Gonzaga. So
ironically, of all those states, I think only like half of them are actual states. So that's good.
What, Utah State, Colorado State,
Fresno
Texas
State,
yeah.
not an actual state. San Diego State, again, not a state. But hey, Boise State,
So-
not a state.
So, how do we feel about this? The Pac-12, not what it was, but also something and still around. They're going to stick around. What do you think of this?
I'm glad we're keeping the best conference logo still kicking. If you are not familiar with the Pac-12 logo, look a little closer. You'll see some waves. You'll see some mountains. I think the new Pac-12, that still hits. Ultimately, Chris, this is pretty much the last relevant to FBS interest move from the Texas-Oklahoma move to the SEC like 4 years ago, right? We're pretty much done here when it comes to FBS football.
We got one, like the Sun Belt will probably add somebody pretty soon.
Louisiana Tech, right?
Or Western Kentucky. Yeah, that might happen pretty soon. But once that is settled, then we will finally be done from what Texas and Oklahoma wrought on the entire college sports universe.
I mean, ultimately for me, listen, the Pac-12 is basically the Mountain West, like 1.3, essentially. I'm glad that we have Oregon State and Washington State. Last year, them playing in playing a season where they basically had to go undefeated to make the playoff, I didn't love. Yep. So I like that the new Pac-12 champion will be thrown into that like 5 highest conference champions. So if somebody goes 11-1,
yeah.
If somebody goes 11-1 and has a really nice non-conference win, you're going to be in the mix for that. I like that. Whereas last year, if Boise if Washington State or Oregon State were 11-1, they basically had no shot to get in the playoff because they would have had to be in the top like 8. So that part of it, I like that we're having, these teams are still having this access. But I'm glad that we can kind of calm down. And I think the new Pac-12, once you sort of get used to this thing being this thing, which is it's the Mountain West minus some dead weight plus Oregon State and Washington State, a pretty good league.
It's like Mountain West plus,
kind
of. It's like the upper half plus, Oregon State, Washington State.
Yes,
football. So it won't be a power conference again. Like they literally voted the 2-member Pac-12 out of the autonomy for last year, and they're not going to get voted back in. Doesn't really matter at this point. Only matters depending on what the college football playoff looks like next, whether it's the 4-4, 2-2 or not. Either way, the Pac-12 is now going to be part of what is essentially the group of 6, which will start saying more and more now, where the top conference champion in that group gets likely one playoff spot moving forward. Football wise, I think this program's like just about on the same footing as the American. I think 4 or 5 of them made a bowl game last year. Boise made the playoff. The American had, I think, 9 teams get into a bowl. Navy beat Oklahoma. I think the bottom of the American is obviously not as good, but it has a lot more teams. So if you kind of chop that off, it's probably pretty similar. Basketball wise, good conference, really good conference. I mean, Gonzaga,
a lot of Final Fours in that mix. San Diego State,
one of the best teams. San Diego State played for the national championship a couple years ago. Boise and Utah State are regularly in the tournament. Colorado State won a game this year. So I think overall, basketball wise, league should be a lot of fun. Texas State, obviously not what they were originally kind of hoping for when they wanted to pitch your Memphis, your Tulane, your UTSA. They originally kind of wanted to make a best of the group of 5 conference.
Yeah.
They didn't get the television money, or haven't yet gotten the television money they wanted to convince those schools to pay like $20 million to leave the American to get into an unknown type of thing. But still, I still maintain that I think the Pac and Mountain West maybe should have just merged. Pac-12 people don't like when I say that, but
they were trying to hang on to the exit fees. Am I wrong? That was the whole reason why they didn't merge.
So that is still going on, by the way. They're still in court mediation. $150 million is supposed to go from the Pac-12 to the Mountain West through the exit fees and the poaching fees and everything. There's a couple of lawsuits. They're trying to settle and get that number down. But if it's still like $100 million or something, like, I don't know if it was really worth it in the end, but we'll see.
I don't know. I would say probably $100 million. That's nothing to sneeze at, Chris.
No, that's what I'm saying. If they had stayed together and merged, and you don't have to spend whatever it ends up being, we'll see what it is. But Pac-12 is back, so we'll be back to 10 conferences next year. Texas State, rising program, good last couple of years with GJ Kinney, their coach. They got good leadership from the university, a president who's a chancellor who's really involved in sports. And then they get into Texas. And that's what a lot of
Yeah.
those Mountain West schools who joined the Pac 12 wanted the Mountain West to get into Texas 4 years ago when realignment happened. They wanted to go get North Texas and UTSA and the like. The Mountain West didn't do it. The American did do it. So now those schools, everybody's in Texas. And that is what it is. So
One more year of the Tupac, Chris. Embrace
one
it.
more year of the Tupac two-pack. Moving to a more serious story. Jake Retzlaff, the BYU quarterback. Last month, a civil suit accusing him of rape was filed by a woman. During the legal proceedings, he claimed that it was consensual sex. But premarital sex violates BYU's honor code. So it's been reported he was considering transferring because he's facing a potential, I guess, 7-game suspension from the school for that. And then on Monday, both parties, him and the woman, filed and agreed to dismiss the lawsuit, which has happened. So that's not an issue anymore. But he still looks like he may be transferring because of that potential school suspension for premarital sex, which has happened before at BYU. Like they have suspended players for that before. What do we think about this?
Well, I'm not going to wade into the suit or the details of that or what because I don't know. I haven't really covered this story. I've obviously read it and paid attention to it because it was pretty relevant. So I'm not going to get into that. I think the most interesting thing to me is, and we were talking before the show, Chris, we want to have somebody on to discuss the honor code because I don't understand the enforcement of it. Because obviously in this sense, in a public document, you admitted to violating the honor code and that produces a suspension. But to me, it sort of feels like a joke. It's like if you're going to have an honor code, like actually have an honor code and care about who is violating it, who is not violating it. Like if you sign up for that, you're going to sign up for that. That's part of BYU. But I think, all these honor code violations that you can commit over time, I think everyone on that's associated with BYU would understand, like, hey, he's not the only one that's violated this. And it just feels kind of silly to me that we're going to enforce this, obviously, because this is a public document and this is a public admission of breaking it. But I get into some sticky areas of how do you enforce that and how do you prove that. But I think ultimately it just feels like we're embracing the honor code, or you're enforcing the honor code in sort of ways that don't really make sense to the spirit of the honor code, which is sort of at the heart of what BYU is and the mission of the school. So I don't really get it, but I want to have somebody on eventually that is more familiar with BYU to sort of talk about how these things work out on the ground.
Yeah, we plan to do that. We're going to wait until we see if Retzlaff indeed does transfer. Because if he does, it's a big football story because BYU is one of the favorites to win the Big 12 next year. And he's coming back starting quarterback. In his place, the team has been preparing its backup quarterbacks without him. You got McKay Hillstead, Trayson Bourget, I think, and Bear Bachmeier, related to Hank Bachmeier.
I believe Trayson Bourget related to Trenton Bourget, the former Arizona State quarterback, I believe. Surely, right? There can't be that many Bourgets playing quarterback out west, can there?
I don't know. You want to look it up, but you can go look it up. But
I think to me, it's the decision is interesting to me because now we're sort of in a really dangerous territory where, okay, yes, the civil suit is dismissed. That doesn't mean, well, I didn't do anything or whatever. This is not an admission of or it is an admission of guilt or not. It just means that there's no legal proceeding hovering over this incident.
Yeah.
If there was, I think it would have been much harder for him to find a place. But even if there's not, I think there's a lot of people, a lot of schools that are going to say, I don't think I really want to get into that. And, Retzlaff, a good player, but we're not talking about, at the risk of getting ahead of ourselves, Arch Manning here. He's not like a world beater. If it was, I think there's a lot of people that would be willing to say, you know what, I'll take the blowback, whatever that blowback looks like to bring him in. It's going to be interesting to see this decision-making play out. And again, I think the honor code thing, it rubs me the wrong way, just as somebody from the outside looking in, because it's like either enforce it or don't enforce it. And I guess in some ways you have to here, but the whole thing, it just doesn't feel right to me. I don't know. Where do you stand on this, Chris?
Well, I mean, that's if it's public and he's admitted it, whatever you think of it. I mean, that is kind of making people abide by it. Now the specific accusations of sexual assault, you can go read the complaint. I'm not going to make any judgments on what is or isn't the situation. Just here's what happened. Now they've decided to both jointly dismiss it. Okay, and so we're that's why we're just kind of talking about the football part of this. He is a graduate, so I believe he would be able to get in the portal and go pretty much anywhere at this point. If this lawsuit is done and schools do their due diligence to feel comfortable about it, could have some power for schools interested, perhaps. If the lawsuit was still there, I don't know who would have taken it. I don't know if anybody would have. But
I would agree.
I don't know. It's late. You're going into fall camp. You've missed the summer as well, so there's like not a lot of time. So just something to watch. We'll talk about this more if he indeed does transfer. But this has kind of been a story going on for the past couple of weeks. I don't think we'd addressed it yet on the show. So wanted to now that we have some movement, especially on the football side of it. Last bit of news here. College basketball video game. It's coming back. Got to credit Matt Brown from Extra Points, who broke the news Monday morning that the Collegiate Licensing Company had recommended schools accept the bid from EA Sports. That the CLC had put out a request for proposals to video game developers. Anybody want to make a college basketball game? EA Sports came back with the best proposal. I've confirmed the news. I've seen the proposals and the documents and everything like that. It's coming back. It's probably coming back in 2028 because it takes a long time to make a video game from scratch. Could have upwards of 730 teams, everybody in Division 1, men and women. That is remarkable. More than anything the college basketball game had before. Dave, you and I didn't play college basketball video games as much as college football growing up, but I still have NCAA.
Played a bunch of them, yeah.
I have NCAA basketball 09 for my Xbox 360, which I still have. I still have College Hoops 2K7 for PS2. How do we feel about this?
I think it'll be good. I mean, the game has to be good. Ultimately, EA Sports, the basketball aspect of it, kind of fell off. They've lost a lot of cultural relevance, in regards to 2K. We talk about playing basketball. When we talk about, NBA Live, it's all 2K. It's all 2K. And 2K was a better game back then. I mean, I did play March Madness for a while, and at some point I switched to 2K. It might have been the one that had TJ Ford on the cover. I don't know what year that was. That's what I recall. But the Greg Oden cover, 2K7, in my mind, is like one of the best college basketball games that's ever been made. I do recall distinctly one summer, like in the middle of college, me and a couple friends, we created ourselves on the same team on PS2 and would play on that team and like played through the season and went to the tournament. That's about as much fun as I've had playing video games because you can just like set screens for each other and like run your own. It was pretty fun. So I'm hopeful that this game is great. I think the identity of college sports and the video game version of March Madness is something that obviously hasn't existed for over a decade now. So getting that back will be interesting. And now we can start our Marist women's basketball dynasty and build it from the ground up.
Story linked in the show notes on everything I have and know about the game. 2K8 is the one you're thinking of with Greg Oden on the cover.
2K7 was JJ Redick, I believe.
Yes, that's the one I still have. And I looked actually not that long ago. When the NCAA tournament came around, that's when I rebought NCAA 09. And because I looked up, it's widely considered, I think the best of the college basketball games were 2K8 and NCAA 10. Which was Blake Griffin on the cover. So
the 09 one was Kevin Love, wasn't it?
Yep,
I think that's right.
Kevin Love got that one. The 09 one is the one that caused all the problems. That's the one
Ed
with
O'Bannon.
Ed O'Bannon.
Classic teams, right?
Yes, classic teams. That's the one with Ed O'Bannon in it. They're not named. They're just jersey number in teams. But that game You've got 1995 UCLA, which is the team Ed O'Bannon played on. You've also got the old San Francisco Dons. You got the Phi Slamma Jamma. You got NC State's national champion. You got Magic Johnson's Michigan State, Larry Bird's Indiana State. Like, I loved playing with those historical teams in March when I got my hands on that game.
Chris, are we in the trust tree right now?
I think so.
All right, I gotta get this off my chest. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know where this is going.
For a long time, Ed O'Bannon, 100% correct in everything that he sued for, everything that he wanted. I have so much internalized anger towards that man for a couple reasons. Number one, I grew up in Arkansas, and so Ed O'Bannon starts his personal vendetta against me by beating Arkansas in the national championship in 1995. And then later on, 15 years later, he's like, hey, David, you know that video game that is like your favorite thing, that your favorite game that exists? I'm just going to have that not exist anymore. I got a lot of internalized Ed O'Bannon anger, and it's very frustrating because he was 100% right. And the whole time that I'm like watching the video game disintegrate, this is like early in my professional career, I'm like, this sucks. And I have no counter to any of the points that are being made because, yes, they definitely made all the guys to be the fake versions of the people. He's totally right. But also, come on, Ed, just let us have this.
So when I started writing about the return of the video game, I went back and read all that stuff, and man, like Kirk Herbstreit said some stuff about Ed O'Bannon that was like really harsh. Like everybody hated Ed O'Bannon for this. But if I can direct your anger towards somebody else, Ed O'Bannon didn't want the game to go away. He just wanted to be paid for being in the game. EA Sports said in a court filing in that case that I found, EA Sports said, we're willing to pay the players. The NCAA said no. That's the reason that it went away. Because the EA Sports was like, well, then if we can't work with you and we're just going to keep getting sued over this,
can't do it.
We're stopping these games.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't want the game to go away, but I understand why a lot of people were mad at him over that because we grew up on the college football game and it went away.
You would know better than I would. Was there a development team for NCAA football 15 that one day just had to like stop working? I would read that story. Everybody in the EA offices when they pulled the plug on 15 and just you come to work the next day, like what do you do?
Well, friend of the show, Ben Howmiller, the principal game designer of CFB 25 and 26, was on that game, I believe, up until it went away. So he probably would have some stories.
I do want to try to get curious. That'd be a weird existence to just be working.
I am trying to get some EA people on for when CFB 26 comes out. So we'll see on that. So on the basketball front, I'm kind of surprised that this is happening. Like I'm like actually quite surprised because the basketball game didn't go away because of NIL. It went away because it wasn't selling. It wasn't selling. It ended in like with 2K8 or 2K9 and NCAA basketball 10. Those were the last versions of it. Football went all the way up to 13. And so it even says in the document that I got that football would outsell basketball typically 3-1. That the highest selling basketball game in a given year was 370,000 units.
That's probably fair. I mean, I religiously bought
2K8.
College football every single year, and I would kind of pick and choose basketball.
So basketball, 370 is the most that it did, 370,000. Football was annually doing 1 million, like every year. And so when CFB first came back and I started talking to people there about, hey, what about basketball? What I kept hearing was, well, we need to see what the numbers are. I even asked EA Sports in a story in February. I was like, well, football did really well. Does that mean you'll bring back basketball? And they were like, maybe we're working on it. We're thinking. And so the way this happened was CLC, the licensing company that represents the schools, put out the proposal in November. Request for a proposal. Video game companies, you have a proposal, give it to us. So that's how this got started. And we may not get a game every year.
I think people would be fine with that.
So 2028 is the planned start date because you got to build all the arenas, all the teams, all the players. It takes a very long time. It was 3 years from the football announcement to the football release. And it says in the document, minimum of 3 games over 6 years. You could produce a new game every year, but if they don't, they will make the updated teams and rosters a downloadable patch. So you won't have a new game. If you don't have a new game in a given year, they'll still update the rosters for you.
Mm-hmm. I think people will be okay with that.
And that could be a way where if you're not sinking maybe as much time and money into it because the sales aren't annually what you think aren't going to be what football is.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm gonna play
there's
it. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I'm gonna be as excited about it. I have a lot of skepticism about EA's basketball engine and just college basketball in general. I really like it. Obviously, the tournament, 2 of the most fun weeks of the year, and then the Final Four is okay. But I'm definitely gonna buy it. So I'm excited about it. Obviously, not I'm gonna be keeping my nose to the ground on every single development like I was with college football, but I'm glad we're going down this road, and I hope it makes money for EA so that we can keep this going, because college basketball I think is somewhat of an underserved market because the sport has been hurt by a lot of the changes around the entire sport and the sports calendar, and it's really only at the front of mind for sports fans for basically a month. So I'm hopeful that we get something, and don't call it March Madness, call it something else.
I believe based on the document, it'll be called college basketball, just like college.
How'd they come up with that name?
I don't know. The 2K EA Sports part of it, you just mentioned, like EA doesn't make an NBA game right now. So like, I assume they have to make a new basketball engine probably. And
You're
it's
asking the
like,
wrong guy. I don't know the logistics of that.
I'm surprised, not surprised, but I'm kind of surprised like 2K didn't get this. You get 2K, you fold it into your 2K video game and do that. And the proposal, the document noted EA was the only one offering to do every team in a whole separate standalone game. So maybe 2K wanted to do college basketball within 2K. Because we saw that in Madden a little bit before they brought college football back.
I remember that when they had Madden,
in Madden.
the college football playoff. I didn't love it. It was
so like
a tease.
Maybe that's what 2K was thinking more instead. But man, I'm very surprised they wouldn't, unless they didn't think it was worth it, because they canceled their game before EA Sports even did. So
yeah, I will say in just terms of playing, I think the My Player mode is just way more fun in the basketball games. It's more fun to play away from the ball and play defense and all that stuff. Like I would never create myself as a receiver in Road to Glory, because it just seems like a lot of doing stuff and not a lot of action. Yeah, but in basketball, it's just a little different, like setting screens or going and blocking out. And like, I really like the single player mode, like to create your guy and go. That's what I almost exclusively played on 2K. I didn't really like making real teams and playing real teams. I just would like the story mode. That was super fun. And then I play some online, but didn't love it. So.
Yeah, we haven't talked Road to Glory. We'll talk about that later this week. We got a guest coming on later this week who I think we'll have some fun with talking about that. And so that is the news segment. And with that, we are going to go to Oregon running backs coach Rashad Samples. And we are pleased to be joined by Rashad Samples, the running backs coach at Oregon, heading into his second season in Eugene. He's also coached at Arizona State, SMU, the LA Rams, Texas, Houston, and he's still only 30 years old. Been moving up pretty quickly. He is one of the best recruiters in the country as well. Rashad, thanks for joining the show.
Man, I appreciate you guys for having me, man.
Rashad, your dad, a legendary high school coach at DFW. I've had a chance to sit down with him a couple times. Reginald Samples, now at Duncanville, got the state title that had eluded him for a while recently. But when your playing career ended, did you have any reservations about going into the coaching business? It's obviously got its ups and downs, but it's a complicated business. Did you have any pause about that?
Yeah, I naturally had some reservations just watching it being done my whole life, and then just wanting to walk my own path and create a lane for myself. I think there was a bunch of reservations there. Initially when I stopped playing, I avoided coaching or being around football as much as I could. I spent time. I became an umpire in the local kids league game.
Really?
Yeah, and I was studying accounting at the time, so school was like up to my neck at school, and I was umpiring. I was figuring out like a couple different avenues. I was dabbling in the stock market and like Wall Street stuff, and so man, I tried to avoid coaching as much as I can, and until Tom Herman, kind of dragged me out there as a student coach.
Do you have any good umpiring stories? I've been to some youth sports games. My daughters are 3 and 1, so we're not quite to that level. But I've seen enough where I shudder at the thought of it. How was the umpiring youth baseball experience?
Yeah, umpiring it's serious. Sometimes it's more the parents take it more serious than like college and high school sports. Like this is little league sports sometimes can be for the parents more than they are for the kids. And I had a game where I had to throw a parent out. It was pretty bad. I actually hadn't been. I was umpiring. I never been behind the plate. I was always in the field. And I think my first game behind the plate, I wasn't doing a great job. And so the team's coach, the team's manager, it was like a AAA game or something. It was a lower level baseball game, but it was pretty high up for what I was doing at the time. I was doing like high school, middle school. So these guys are kind of serious, and I'm behind the plate. And like I remember, like the coach just screaming, like, "This guy's never been here before. What are we doing?" Like, it was like, "Is this open gym? Is this directly? Like, what are we doing? Who is this guy?" And I remember like having to throw him out, and he wasn't too happy about being thrown out, especially by somebody he could tell had no clue what they were doing, which he was right. I had no clue what I was doing. I was faking it well though, and he told me he was gonna wait for me out in the parking lot.
Oh, wow.
This is incredible. Yeah, I feel like getting yelled at by a manager is tough when he's right. That makes it a little bit more tougher.
Oh, it sucks when he's right because you gotta like go hard sell on being wrong, being right when you know you're wrong and everybody else knows you're wrong. It's like you have to. It's a harder commitment to like what you believe in because you know what you believe in is not true.
So, for people who don't know, you were a 4-star recruit coming out of high school, playing for your dad, Oklahoma State, and then Houston. Mm-hmm. Your career ends due to concussions. Mm-hmm. How did that experience impact the way you became a coach and how you work with players now, having gone through that not too long ago and the injuries and everything?
Yeah, I think it just kind of it always reminds me like the ball is gonna go flat one day, and a lot of times like as coaches we lose sight of that for our players. Like we have to keep in mind that the ball is gonna go flat one day and prepare them for that time. And I think we spend a lot of time game planning, preparing guys for games, preparing guys for the league or whatever their endeavors seem to be, like football wise. But I think, we can't lose sight that we're preparing these kids for life. And a lot of these lessons that we're teaching them about the game, about the discipline of the game, about the being consistent, the work ethic, the grind, the ability to prepare. Like I think it's easier to translate to football when you start with preparing them that way as human beings. So I think, as we prepare these players, I think it's easier when you take a life approach and then kind of bridge it over to football because, you guys been around it, the people in professions that prepare naturally, the people who, wake up early and it doesn't matter what they're doing, they're going to be successful. And so I think teaching them like how my experience with the ball going flat so abruptly, reminds me to teach them that because those are some of the things that helped me get where I'm at today.
How hard was that decision or when you found out like you weren't going to be playing football anymore?
It wasn't my decision. They took the pads out of my locker. I remember like going to my locker and like there was no pads there anymore. That was they took my equipment. And I remember talking to Tom, that was the first year, and he was like, "Hey, you're going to student coach, you can come back in the spring." And then I student coached that year, and I thought I was coming back in the spring. And I remember having a conversation with Major Applewhite, and him telling me like, we just going to allow you to student coach. You can't take any more hits to the head. Like, yeah. So
how did you work through that when you were, when that comes to an end? what do you do to sort of grapple with that and try to move on?
You fight yourself. Like, I mean, there's no right answer. Like, what did I do? Feel sorry for myself, to be honest. I was pissed. I was pissed at the world. I was pissed at the game. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like, I wanted to get away from football. I wanted a break from football. Like, I wanted to get as far away from football as I can. And naturally, you know, it presented itself back to me. It came back full circle. But like, what do you do? I don't know. Like, that's like asking you, what do you do right now if your house is on fire? There's no right answer. Like, like I'm gonna grab this. No, what about this? Like, I'm gonna run out the house. I don't know.
Do you remember the first time that you felt that love come back again for the game after your career ended?
Yeah, I remember. It was we had a kid on our team that, like, when I was a player, he lived with me for a little bit. Man, his name was Marquez Stevenson. He played at U of H. He ended up playing going to the Bills.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Marquez used to live with me, and so all those guys in that grade, it was like Marquez Stevenson, Ed Oliver. We had a kid named Courtney Lark. I mean, it was a huge class. De'Aaron King was in that class, who was at SMU, and those guys Marquez used to stay with me, and I used to like run routes with him and like basically just mentor. I was his big brother. And then all those other guys, they were all best friends, that class of guys, Derek, Ed, and those guys used to always come around and come to my house. And those guys became like little brothers to me. And I remember coaching those guys that spring with Brian Johnson, and Brian Johnson was a big part of it. He was somebody that was young and African-American and a prominent figure, but still like cool. He was still like fairly cool, and he was on the cover of NCAA, and he had that in his office. So like, he was somebody I like quickly could say, okay, I can identify with. Like, that's what I wanted to look like. And then those guys, Marquez and De'Aaron and Ed and Courtney Lark and Dixie Wooten and those guys, like, man, just being around those guys, coaching those guys, mentoring those guys, like man, I was sure it was what I wanted to do after being around those guys, and like just seeing the effect I could have on those guys, the talks I can have with those guys, like how they saw the game and how I once saw the game, and then being on the other side, it was cool. That's when I knew. I was like, okay, this is something I want to do.
And you start off as an off-field coach at Houston and Texas and SMU before you eventually get elevated there. What was some of that grunt work like? What was some of the most humbling stuff you had to do working your way up from the bottom as a coach?
Yeah, so my first year at SMU, I was an on-field coach. You always get that like misconstrued because it like, I guess it says like offensive coach. But so my first, I was done with the grunt work once I got to SMU. I was doing more like earning my stripes work as a coach. But like early on, man, I used to go get Coach Herman's eggs every morning at 5:30 a.m. 6 a.m. when we had to be there. It'd be like 5:30, 6 a.m. And every morning, like Coach Herman would be sitting there, or he'd walk in right at like 6 or 5:50. And like, I knew like if I didn't have him already, there became a time where if he was disappointed, he'd be like, Sam, you got some eggs over there? I had a little desk in the corner. And I just keep some eggs over there and some hot sauce and some Lowry's. He liked to have some Lowry's with his eggs. So cold boiled eggs, I sit them on my desk. I'd go pick up Daryl Watt's. Daryl Watt, I worked with Daryl Watt, who's a long-time receiver coach. I go pick up his laundry. I went to his house one time while they installed his Wi-Fi and sat outside his house. He was like, it's going to be a couple hours. It ended up being like 4 or 5. I mean, going to pick up lunch, going to pick up like kids' gifts. I mean, I would go to Coach Herman's house before recruiting events and take out the trash, like take out all the trash in his house. And then like at the end, stay to the end of a fence and then retake out all the trash. It got to the point like where we'd have recruiting events at Coach Herman's house when I was a young coach. And I'd be the first one at his house all the time. And I would knock there at 7 a.m. and like Michelle, who I love so much and has been like a older figure to me, like a mom figure to me. And she'd answer the door. She'd be like, "Oh, Rashad," and just like walk back in the room because she already knew who it was. I would wake her up. It was a lot of grunt work. The drive-in, like I said, going to get breakfast. I go pick up breakfast on Taco Tuesdays, on our game plan days. It was a bunch. That was grunt work for sure. I definitely went through initiation.
The obviously recruiting has changed a lot as NIL and money has become a bigger factor. And you hear a lot of people talk about the shift from relational recruiting to transactional recruiting and that kind of stuff. How are conversations now with players and families different? And do you feel like relationships matter less now when there's so much money in the game?
I think it does matter. I think it kind of groups things into tiers, right? And so there's a playing field of which you can play ball at. And I think relationship still matters in that playing field, right? When you have a lower level school who maybe can't afford the same amount of resources that a blue blood can afford, right? Then the conversation is different, right? Back then, when I was at SMU, I'd have a chance with a kid when we were still kind of building that thing. Right now, they have a chance with everybody in the country because of what Retzlaff has built over there. But at the time when we were still building it up, I could still, because money wasn't involved, I had a chance with kids. We signed Jordan Hudson from who's still there, who was choosing between Texas and Alabama and OU. We signed Roger Daniels, who was committed to who's committed to Baylor and had bigger offers. And like at that time, if money was involved, we probably wouldn't have had the resources being in the AAC, Baylor being in the Big 12, them probably having more money than us, probably a bigger revenue share. The resources would have kind of made the conversations a lot harder. But when you're playing at a level playing field, man, relationships still matter, right? When you talk about schools, when it comes down to Oregon, A&M and Texas, Oregon, Alabama, and Ohio State, Oregon, like these conversations, these relationships still matter because, the ballpark figure is fairly close enough for like where the financials are going to be. It's fairly close enough where, our relationships matter, like where that relationship you have with that kid, with that family, the trust, the development, what your program stands for, the tradition, like those things matter. And, you don't want to sacrifice, making a little bit more money for a bad situation.
So we've talked to a lot of players and recruits and not very often do guys take just the highest offer. So what you're kind of explaining is like, yeah, there's like a certain level of tier you got to be in the ballpark on money. But when you're in that tier, it's not necessarily who offers the most. It's often comes down to then what is that relationship? Then what is the pitch? How does he fit here? What can we provide to him other than that?
No doubt. I think you're spot on. And I think, you still have to recruit relationally. And I think, even with the word pitch and things like that, like I think those days are over. I think it's down to, again, who has the best relationship and then who resourceful wise can provide a kid for the best situation.
Last year, you come to Oregon. You're working for Dan Lanning, a guy that has got a rising star himself. What did you learn from working with him the first year that maybe you didn't know from the outside looking in when you took that job?
Just his relentlessness. I mean, if you guys know Dan, I mean, Dan works his butt off, man. He's committed. He's a grinder, and then at every level. I mean, at this level, you can't not be committed, man. But the commitment he has every single day, day in, day out, to be great. The commitment he has to make others better, to push his staff members. Man, I've been lucky. I've worked for two guys who came from similar backgrounds with Kenny and Dan, and like they pour into their staff. They pour into the staff, and just seeing the level he does that at, and then the recruiter he is, is my biggest surprise. Like, he can recruit, and he does a good job building relationships. Like he's elite at building relationships. And I should have known during the recruiting process or when I was taking a job, he was recruiting me, and I was like, man, this dude here, he can get him.
When you see him in those environments, what separates him from other head coaches as an elite recruiter?
I think the willingness to like meet people where you are always separates guys in recruiting. I think that's the biggest separator in recruiting. I think when you meet these 18-year-old kids, most coaches want them to meet them where they are, or they're trying to bring them to where they are. They're trying to explain to them, how they see things. And I think Dan's ability to go put himself in other people's shoes, put himself in other people's situation, understand where they came from, how they grew up, or how they see things, and then kind of try to mold that to where he is, I think makes him elite. And if you know his background a little bit, he worked in service. We joked about it the other day, him working in service. He's like, you meet when you're a waiter, you got to meet so many different people, and you got to meet them where they are, because you're trying to get tips and you're trying to get money. You can't focus on what you think or how you feel like you're doing. You got to serve them. And he said, I bring that same mentality to recruit.
I visited Memphis back in the day when Mike Norvell was there, and on his staff was Dan Lanning and Kenny Dillingham, both there.
Yeah.
Ryan Silverhill there as well.
Yeah.
I could see the intensity back then sitting in on some of his linebackers meetings. You mentioned his pitch to you, his recruiting of you. Like, what was that like? What were the things he was trying to do to get you to come up there?
Well, there was an interview process, and I think at a certain point in the interview process, he had identified, I know there was a couple guys he was interested in, right? And I think there became at a certain point where he identified me as the guy. And I think that's when he started to say, hey, I've identified you as the guy. And he put the full court press on, man. He was hitting me up. He was telling me about Oregon. He was explaining to me about the situation and how it can affect him, what it can do for my career. And he was hitting me. He was, as he likes to say, he was waking me up in the morning and putting me to bed at night.
Well, when you're first talking to him, when he's first interviewing you for jobs, what are the questions that he's hitting you with that you've got to kind of answer in those situations?
I think he asked me. I've been through a couple interviews in the past 4 years. He asked me. Tell me about a unique recruiting experience, and that I've been through, and of course I had a million of those stories. We talked some ball. He asked me, what's my plan to connect and build relationships with some of the running backs in the room who had a previous coach who they've known forever. It's always hard when you have a guy leave that's been in the room for a long time and has created strong relationships. And so he was asking me, what's my plan for that? He was asking me, about my experience with the Rams. And he asked me, what do I want to coach? What is my offensive coaching trajectory? What do I want that to look like? What's my goals? Obviously to be a head coach is something I told him. And, how does that align with Oregon? And how do I see that fitting? And so forth and so on.
So going back to the current team and go back to last year too, obviously, undefeated regular season, but you lose in the Rose Bowl to Ohio State, a team you guys beaten. How much did that sting? How much has that kind of stayed in your guys' minds over the last, 5-6 months as you move forward into the season, the way it ended?
Yeah, I think it's a learning lesson, right? And I think you can learn something from every game. I think too many times people take the losses and make them, they are bigger because you lose, right? But there's some games where, we played terrible and we came out and we won, right? And you play in those games and hey, if this was Ohio State, or if they did a few things different, or if they played their best game, we lose that game. And so, there's a lot to take from Ohio State game. There's a lot that we learned about ourselves, about our players, about our process, but also, there's a lot to learn about last season. And so, I think it's because it's the one loss, you can magnify it, but there's work to be done after every single game. And that one was no different. And, you show up and you attack the off season, you compile all the things that you learn, and you re-attack those goals. You reset those goals and you re-attack them every year.
What was the takeaway from that game and what you guys built on to try and take into 2025?
Yeah, that team was a really good team. So I don't want to make it like we just went out there and we lost about a good amount, but we didn't go out there and just poop the bed. I mean, we did. We didn't play our best game at all, but that was also a really good team that showed up and played one of their best games on that day. And so, there's some game plan things we could have done better. There's some ways we could have probably attacked the defense, the structure of the defense. There's ways we probably could have ran the ball and created some advantageous situations in the pass game through a little bit more run. And man, but you go back and there's always what I could have did better. Some things that we're taking into this season, going off that one is just understanding that it's going to be a long season. That was like the first season that was that long, and preparing and like kind of being a part of that and going that far and seeing what that is like. The preparation for that body wise, I think is going to be big on our guys' body, and as coaches, our mental. Like mentally preparing to go that long. I think as you get experience in those situations, you only get better. So
one of the new guys on the team in your room, Mecky Hughes, running back from Tulane. I love this kid. I loved him at Tulane the last couple of years. I mean, what's it been like coaching him? How good is he? How much are people going to really find out who this guy is?
Yeah, Makai's a really good player, and like the thing about Makai is he shows up and works, man. Like you haven't met a kid that works like him. Like he shows up and works, and he doesn't say much. He really got we call him the old school back in the room because he got a little mini fro, and he got those biceps and big old arms. He's all swole up, and he shows up every day, and he chops wood and carries water. And so I'm excited to see just him play at this level and get the opportunity to just showcase what he has all over the field. I mean, this is a guy that's going to be able to play special teams. He's going to be able to play. I mean, he's going to be able to have an impact in a lot of different ways. And man, that running back room we have is a really good room. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention like Noah Whittington is like this guy's like I was watching film from like 2013. Noah was still on it. I mean, this guy's been here forever, and he's been playing at a high level forever. Like seriously though, but we bring up old clips of Bo Nix and him throwing hitches into the boundary, and I look up and it's Noah catching and knifing on a hitch. I'm like, dang, he's been starting and playing at a high level here for a long time. And you got guys that Jaden Lamar, Jay Harris, Dink Riggs, and we got two really good freshmen, man. So that room's put together really good.
Last year heading into the bowl game, I was struck by some of the comments from some of the players about Dante Moore. Just like, this guy is the real deal. We're hyped about him coming into this year. And you don't hear a lot of teammates talk about the backup quarterback in that way very often. What have you seen from him, and what, from you guys as a program perspective, what are kind of the expectations for him coming into this year?
Yeah, I think Dante, man, I think people get really excited about Dante's potential. Like you just watch him throw the ball and you could tell it's different. Like you just sit and watch him throw the ball for 15, 20 minutes. And you could tell he has some different juice to him. And he also has an infectious personality. And I think that's a lot what you hear. And I think it's in the quarterback room. I think it's with the quarterbacks. I think it's with the running backs, the receivers, the DBs, the linebackers. He has a very infectious personality in it, and Dylan did also. And when you have that much talent and you're able to sit there and show up every single day and be a happy guy, still be an infectious guy, still be infectious on the team, still be a leader, still be somebody who pushes everybody up and pushes everybody forward, I think people take a notice to that. And I think in a world where we're quick to compare or quick to say I can do that, when you got a guy with a bunch of talent who just lifting everybody up all the time and want to talk about everybody else and how he can help everybody else. I think, that leadership becomes infectious. And I think that's why you hear people are quick to talk about him, quick to bring his name up, and because he's done that in the building for the past year.
Last one. I really appreciate your time. Oregon's program's been very close for a number of years. It's played in some national championship games. You guys were the number one team last year. Just hasn't quite got there yet. What will it take for Oregon to get to that national championship level? What's that last step that needs to be taken?
Yeah, I just think it's built on consistency, man. I think this game is hard. It's a game of inches, and it's hard to predict, right? But I think if you show up every single day and you're consistent with your process, like what's supposed to happen, and we have championship caliber teams. We had one last year. Well, I think we have a chance to have one this year. And, as we continue to recruit at a high level, we'll keep having championship level teams. And I think, we can't get caught up in the result of a championship. Like that's a result of a process, right? So I think you ask, what is it going to take? I mean, it's going to take continually refining our process. And if you look at Dan's track record here, every single year he's had more wins. Every single year he has more draft picks. Right. So it's like like if this thing keeps going in the direction it's going, it's really hard to miss the championship bus, you know. And I think as long as we keep striking in this direction, man, it'll happen. You'll see it happening in the very near future. You know, like I said, 13 wins last year, right? And so it's constantly went up, and if it constantly goes up, if we constantly allow the process to get better, and the result will keep getting better. So I think we're on the right path, we're on the right track. I don't think it takes anything special but us to hold on and stay on this roller coaster up and down and finish out the ride.
Yeah. Got a good team. Oh, Dave, you're muted.
Rashad, I gotta ask, because I've always wondered this. What was your first time in the Nike World headquarters like?
Like the Nike store or the Nike headquarters? Because you got to remember,
I
went to
the big building.
You got to remember, I went to
all the nonsense.
You got to remember, I went to the opening in 2009 with Skyline.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. We had that. I went to the Nike headquarters there, and then I played in the opening in 2012. That's where I committed to Oklahoma State at. And so those were my first two. But my first time being back was like seeing all the new centers. It's crazy, man. It's Disneyland. Like this whole place. You talk about what we're building. Ask about these upgrades of facilities we're doing. That's crazy. Bro, it's Disneyland. Nike is the Disneyland of sports. That's what it's like. That's the only thing I can compare it to. When you go to Disney World, when you go to Disneyland, and it's just nostalgic. That's what it's like going to the Nike headquarters.
I love they have the miniature like players with all the uniforms that have been worn throughout the year. Like they're almost like action figures or whatever. When I visited a few years ago, I saw that. It's really cool. Not everybody can get in there, but it's like a whole village for athletes. It's really crazy what the track and field stadium up there is nuts.
It's dope.
It's a lot. But Coach Samples, really appreciate the time. Congrats on the success. Good luck this season, and good luck with everything. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on.
Good to see you again.
Thanks again to Coach Samples for joining the show. It's been very fun to watch him come up in his career. We remember back when he was playing back in the day.
Chris, I think I talked to him as a recruit, which is that's a tough place to be. I don't remember. And then I remembered him playing at Oklahoma State, and then I kind of lost track of him a little bit when he went to Houston, and then he was kind of showing up on like these young coach lists, and then kind of seen him coming up to staffs, and then we got to sit down. I went to Arizona State a few years ago, got to sit down there, and then obviously was happy that he went to Oregon. It's good to see him again, and it's good to see a guy have some difficulty and rediscover a love for a sport that obviously has meant so much to him and has given him so much. And to find kind of a new meaning and a second chapter in life where he can kind of give back and help others curate that love and discover that love for the sport. Love talking to Rashad. Good dude.
Absolutely. And with that, we are going to jump into the final segment of this show. It is called Remember Some Guys.
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.
This is a segment where we name a former college football player and we go, hey, remember that guy? I'm going to start off.
Let's do it.
With Mike Teal, running backs coach. Rutgers quarterback from 2004 to 2008. Most famously led their upset of number 3 Louisville in 2006.
Jeremy Ito. Iconic finish there in that game. Because he had the sky cam, he kicked the field goal, pointed at the awesome.
Yeah. That was the kicker. That was the kicker. But that's the team that had Ray Rice, Brian Leonard, Kenny Britt, Tyquan Underwood.
Some good
loaded.
players, man.
Loaded. That Rutgers was 9-0 at that point. Mike Teal in that game, 8 for 21 for 89 yards, with 189 yards with a touchdown and an interception. Actually, got drafted later on in the 6th round. Spent a couple years in the NFL. Spent 1 year at Rutgers as a coach, led Don Bosco Prep, the powerhouse New Jersey school, a number of years ago. But yeah, Mike Teal, I always remember that Rutgers used to be like the bottom of the sport forever. And when they came up under Greg Schiano in the mid 2000s, you got to understand how crazy that was.
Didn't Sports Illustrated do a thing about they might kill the program because it was so bad and it was losing money? I feel like I remember them doing something like that.
Maybe, but then like they have that season in 06. They beat Louisville. They stormed the field twice. Really great moment that kind of brought Rutgers into the minds of a lot of people. And it's generally, they've had down years and down stretches since, but they've been a decent enough program since then. So shout out to Mike
Teal.
Teal.
An odd choice. I got to be honest with you, Chris. I don't remember Mike Teal. I remember Jeremy Ito, and then obviously Brian Leonard and Ray Rice and those guys. And I don't remember. I remember when I think of that Rutgers team, other than Schiano, I think of Jeremy Ito. Maybe that's weird, but I didn't watch a ton of Rutgers, but I did watch that Thursday night game when they beat Louisville. They didn't quite get to number 1, did they? But they were like in the top 5. I think that was to get like to 9-0 or something like that.
Yeah, they got to 9-0. I think they moved. Yeah. I'll look it up, but they moved, I think, almost into the top 10 at the point.
That was, again, this is the stuff we talk about, Chris, because you and I are united in this. And I think a lot of people that watch the sport, that cover the sport, it's just not about who wins the title every year. These teams live forever. These players live forever. And these stories and what it means to a campus, I just think there's going to be even programs that don't make the playoff that still have really memorable seasons that live on forever in their programs. And I think that list will be shorter now because of making the playoff is kind of the gold standard. But there's a lot. That Rutgers team is a really good example of a team that is iconic and legendary. And what did they do? For a lot of people, they'd be like, I don't really care. But for Rutgers fans, I think that's the gold standard in a lot of ways. And I'm glad that those teams exist. And I think they perfectly illustrate what you and I really like about this sport, which is just the stories and the places, and everything is different. And, going from the bottom of the Big East to sort of average in the Big Ten. It's okay.
They moved up to number 7 after that game. They lost the next week to Cincinnati. Okay. And they finished number 12, going 11-2. By the way, remember Jeremy Ito missed the first kick for the win on that, and they had to. And Louisville was offside, I think, and they had to redo it.
I think I remember that.
Made the kick.
Would that have been a Brian Kelly Cincinnati team? I believe it would have. Wouldn't it have been
2006? No, that would have been Mark D'Antonio.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Cradle of coaches. So much for that. One day we'll be back. Chris, we debated before the show if my guy remembering was too mainstream, but ultimately I can't turn down the fellas that we just don't see a lot of. Our guy, Jared Lorenzen. I think a lot of people remember him. The Pillsbury throw boy, the hefty lefty. First of all, he got a quarterback wearing in the 20s. We don't see that a lot. Obviously, he was
number 20, number 22 at Kentucky.
Number 22 in your programs, number 1 in your hearts. The thing about him is, yes, he was a larger man, and yes, the dude could sling it. He had arm talent wise, unbelievable, and a really good story. And it's sad, obviously, he died from some health complications a few years ago. But one of the guys that just will live forever in college football, because how can you watch him play and not feel joy? Every time you watch him, like, I love this guy. He just played with a reckless abandon. Those Hal Mummy Kentucky teams were extremely entertaining. Was he one of the Guy Morris teams too? Was there a mixture in there?
Yes. Yep.
Guy Morris in there.
And Rich Brooks.
Yes, and Rich Brooks, excuse me. But the dude had great arm talent. Super, super fun. And I mean, if you're making the Mount Rushmore of Kentucky football players, it's like Randall Cobb, Tim Couch, and then he's got to be on there, doesn't he? 10,000 passing yards.
Yeah, he set a bunch of school records in 2000 when he, in his first year there. Wikipedia lists him at 6'4", 285 pounds.
Generous.
That obviously fluctuated. When he played in some of those like independent football leagues, he was probably a bit bigger. There have been some good like ESPN stuff on him.
I believe Tommy Tomlinson wrote a thing about him.
Yes. I'll try to remember to link that in the show. A great story on him. Died in 2019, just 38 years old, which is tough. But like, again, he's like a quintessential college football player. And when you think about like the college football video game and like Ultimate Team, and like they're doing things to like bring some old legends back into the game, like that'd be a fun dude to play with on a modern college football game, Like just like
it would be.
You can teach the history of the sport you teach the history of the sport through Ultimate Team to a lot of younger people.
This is part of what I love about college football, and I like the NFL. I'm not a like, oh, the NFL sucks guy. I really like watching the NFL, but I think we can all admit they all kind of are looking for about the same types of things. The same types of players have success there, and yes, you fit in scheme, and there's a little bit of difference, but like, oh, this guy is a little bit faster than those guys. But there's not a lot of big quarterbacks in the NFL. There's not a lot of Desmond Watsons in the NFL. Like, there's just not guys that just, the Jaquiz Rodgerses of the world. There's not a lot of guys that are just physically anomalous in ways that you don't see in football because the NFL phases those players out. But college football, if you're talented enough, you can still succeed there. And so I feel like a lot of my remembering guys picks are built around that, where I just remember you because I remember watching you and feeling like I was seeing something that I could only see in college football. And not just you being great, but you being great, it illustrates something about why I love the sport. So shout out to Jared Lorenzen. We miss you. And man, thanks for all the cool stuff that you did on the field and giving a lot of college football fans joy.
College football legend. I mean, like me picking that a guy from that 06 Rutgers team, you picking Jared Lorenzen, like these are things that only happen in college football. It's why we love, why I like doing the segment. Like we didn't remember some guys was created by like Deadspin back in the day, like whatever. It's just like a thing, like a lot of
Too
guys.
Baseball heavy for my taste because I didn't remember most of the guys.
It's very baseball heavy, but that's why I wanted to do kind of a college football version of it. And we've been getting a lot of feedback from people who love the segment. So that's why we do it.
Speaking of old school Deadspin, they also had a running gag of whose disgusting baseball chin was this. There's no real college football equivalent to that. But maybe we should do a remember some guys just Deadspin edition. Just old people that used to work for Deadspin that were very funny. The current zombified Deadspin edition is deeply depressing and some of the worst things that has been created on the internet.
They did some good things. They did some bad things. It was a weird time for media back in the day. But
yes, there's some Netflix documentaries about that.
Yeah. Anyway, that'll do it here. Again, bunchformationpod@gmail.com for any and all feedback. Follow us on all your social medias. 5 stars reviews, please. They really help the show. It's been great to see all of that from everybody who's reached out about doing the show. We got a fun show Wednesday. We got a guest that will be a lot of fun. Familiar to both of us, familiar to you as well. Looking forward to that. And that'll do it here for David Ubben.
Welcome to the show, Nick Saban.
I am Chris Vannini, and we will see you in the next one.
Please, by the way, please bring back the turnover chain forever and always.